Om. Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namashrishtam Manumapi Satchiputram Atrasarupam Rupam Tasya Grajamurupurim Maturim Gostavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Gurum Tam Natusme Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Moli Ratnamala Diti Nirajita Padapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairupasyamanam Paritastvam Harinam Samshrayami Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalu Samarpaitum Unnatosvalarasam Svabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaye Khandare Spurato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujjo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dhiyavaro Jugadharma Palo Ande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Sarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namostute He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Adha Kanta Namostute Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamritavahini Kripaya Nijapadabja Dasyan Mahyam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihina Aparadhalakshay Shiptascha Kamati Tarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Sriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Shri Shri Devji Gopal Ji Ki Jai ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय श्री वेणुगीत की जय तिरुभाव महोत्सव तिथि श्री उदाहरण दाता ठाकुर की जय गौर भक्त वृंद की जय गौर प्रमाण So good evening to all of you, welcome and thanks for coming despite a long and intense day. But glorious one for sure. So we are continuing with our series of lectures on Sri Venu-gita, and today we are in our 7th meeting, where we will be studying verse number 6, which is the last, if you will, introductory verse before officially starting with the Venu-gita itself, the song of the gopis. But as usual, let's make a brief, hopefully brief recap of our previous meeting, where we were studying the second part of the 5th verse, which is a very important one, maybe the most well-known one verse in the whole Venu-gita, where this Mantramaya Upasana is described. Mantramaya Lila Upasana is described. Krishna entering the forest and accompanied by all these defining attributes that make him who he is. So we saw this verse in two classes. The first one, we just got to study the first line, Barhapidam Natavara Vapu Karnaya Karni Kadam. Krishna having a peacock feather crowning his head, Krishna having a body of the best of dancers, and having one karnikar flower in his 2 ears. I won't repeat all the details that we already mentioned. And in the previous lecture, we studied the 3 remaining lines. The second line, Vibrat Bhashra Kanaka Kapisham, which seem to have redundancies. He's wearing cloth, which is golden, which is yellow and golden. So the apparent redundancy has to do with he's wearing all this in a special way. He's in a special bhava. He's trying to create some particular result with that. And of course, we also explain how the colors that accompany Krishna in his cloth, Pitambara, coincide with Sri Radha. Now, what he has inside, he's expressing outside, and vice versa. Sri Radha has Shyam inside and Shyam outside. Her clothes are that color as well. And then by Jayantim Chamalam, Krishna also is not accompanied only by Pitambara, but by Jayanti Mala, this all victorious garland that has 3 specific flowers combined, and which represents the victory, like the gold medal Olympics, a reward for someone who has made a real victory, the celebration of victory over the Brajavasis' heart. And above that, he himself is gloriously defeated by their love as well. That's reciprocal. Then we say third line, Ram Brahm Benur Adhara Sudaya Purayam. So Sukadeva is not just simply saying Krishna play his flute, but he filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips. And he would like to say more, but what to do? That's the meter of the verse. And we share some words about the flute, and how we should ourselves, if you want to create an analogy, should become like a flute, like let Krishna fill our holes, our defects with his nectar, and create some song through us, basically. So we can be instrumental, so he can create further udipana through us, basically filling our holes. And we spoke about the other amrita, the nectar of the lips of Krishna, different types of other amrita, the nectar of his lips in the form of flute playing, in the form of remnants of food that he has eaten, remnants of other type of remnant of his lips, direct kissing in the context of Madhura Rasa mostly. And well, how this other amrita is totally captivating for the Braja Gopis. Then also this verse, Brindaranyan Swapada Ramanam. With his 2 feet, he's bestowing so much pleasure on the bulk forest of Vrindavan by entering barefoot there on something apparently harsh, the forest of Vrindavan, but actually which becomes the perfect playground chosen by the Absolute in his ultimate form to perform his most intimate pastimes. And we describe how the land of Braj was in charge of preserving Krishna's footprints and worshipping that. Mother Earth in Vrindavan is crowning herself with her sindur as a wife of Bhagavan, is Krishna's footprints on her forehead. Thank you. And Krishna not only choosing to walk barefoot there, but even eating Braja Raj. Raj is another word for dust, or Renu. Sometimes Vrindavan, it is a Atul Krishna Goswami. He's a famous Pandit and scholar, and he already passed away from the Radha Raman tradition. And he used to mention this, like make a play of words. Vrindavan is famous. I think he mentioned 4 things. I can only recall 3. He was a Venu, Renu, and Dhenu. So Venu is the flute, Renu is the dust, and Dhenu is the cows. Kama Dhenu. There was a 4th one, but at least those 3 are quite enough for making Vrindavan quite well known. And also we describe how the word pada, apart from referring to Krishna's feet, can refer to like to abode. So Swapada Ramanam means This abode of Vrindavan is about any other abodes of Bhagavan in other forms, or pada can mean also verses. So also Krishna is entering the forest adorned by the verses that his friends are reciting and while glorifying his entrance into the forest and so on. The poetry of his own, swa, of the ones who are extensions of himself. And of course, we also explain Vrindavan is glorious and its dust is glorious because it's also dust of the feet of Sri Radha, and Krishna himself chooses to self-abhishek himself, do self-abhishek with the dust of her own feet. And basically, we concluded with the last part. We say, Gopa Vrindai Pravishat Gita Kirti. So accompanied by the multitude of Gopas, of friends, he entered the forest with his glories being sung, as we mentioned. And some acharyas will sing the Gopas were the ones singing the glories. Others will say the Devas are singing the glories of Krishna and throwing flower petals from the sky and so on. Or again, some commentators will say specifically the Priyanarma Sakas are singing to Krishna about Sri Radha in a particular way, noting that Krishna is exhibiting a particular bhava. So he needs some particular kirtan to nourish that bhava and so on. And we also concluded mentioning two other verses in the Bhagavatam, which are similar to this one recited by Brahma, the first one in Brahma Stuti, and one recited by the Dvijapatnis. But we mentioned, compare the three and how the other two were recited in certain mixture, if you will, of some level of Aishwarya, if you will, while in this particular case, we are finding the topmost Madhurya of Braj being expressed, making this verse unique among all the other ones. So, that's it. We will continue today with verse number 6. For those who have it there, I will recite, or we can recite. It says like this. So here we will see how the nectar of divine love is flooding the gopis' hearts. This is a previous verse to the official beginning of Venu-gita. Iti Venu-ravam Rajan Sarva Bhuta Manoharam Shrutva Brajasriya Sarva Varnayantyo Bhire Bhire. The translation says, remember that Sukadeva is speaking to Raj Parikshit. O king, when the young ladies of Imbraj heard the sound of Krishna's flute, which captivates the minds of all living beings, they all embraced one another and began describing it. So after that will begin their description of the sound of the flute, the Venu-gita. But first we will share today some thoughts, some ideas regarding this particular verse. Let's define a little bit word by word. Remember the importance of every single word in every section of the Bhagavatam. So the verse is saying, Iti Venu Ravam Rajan. So Iti means in this way. Now I give the straight general translation, they will enter more in detail. So Iti means like thus, or in this way, something like this. Venu Ravan means the sound of the flute. Ravan means sound. So the sound of the Venu. Venu Ravan Rajan. Rajan means, O king, like Nripa, like when Sukadeva before said Nripa. In Sanskrit, you find many words, many different words for one same word, and many similar words for different words. So you have to know what's the particular context to understand what they mean. So Rajan means O king. Then we have Sarva Bhuta, which means all living beings, all Bhutas. Bhuta means in this case living entities, Sarva all. Manoharam. So mana, haram. Mana means mind and hara means haram, steal. So which steals the minds, basically referring to the flute, stealing the minds of all living beings. Then third line says Shrutva Brajas Striya, Sarva. So Shrutva means after hearing. Remember Shruti, Ashrutya, all these words similar, have to do with hearing. Braja Striyaha Sarbaha. All the ladies abiding in the village, basically refers here. Sarva means all, Striya means ladies, and Braja refers to the village of Braj, where the gopis are. Remember, Krishna is in the forest, the gopis are in the village. And Varnayantyo Abhire Bhire. When you have this, how do you say in English? Apostrophe in Spanish? Okay. Sometimes things are easier than what you think. So it's like an abbreviation, but generally there is one letter there. So in the verse it says bhire bhire, but it's abhire bhire. So varnayantya means while describing. So while the gopis were describing the sound of the flute, abhire bhire means they embraced. And the implications, as we will see, is among each other while doing so. So we will try to share some thoughts about why is this happening in that way, and what's the background of that, and so on. So let's begin with the first word, iti. So again, iti means in this way. So generally, a word like iti, there are many verses in Bhagavatam and in the Gita even that will begin with iti. So iti implies like sequence and connection. So the word iti is connecting what is being said in this verse with all that has been said before. So in this way, it's connecting previous verse, especially. Remember, Jiva Goswami said the 5th verse and the 6th verse should be seen as a unit. We were not able to do that. I have to see only one of the 2 verses in 2 classes, so what to speak of making all in one unit. But he established this connection. Like he first gives this Krishna meditation, as we shared in verse 5, and iti. In this way, like considering such a darshan the gopis were having, including the sound of the flute, the result was that. But also the word iti can connect not only what has been said before, but what is being said here from now onwards. No? So towards the back and towards past and future, if you will, something like that. So the in this way also will refer, after the gopis heard the flute, in this way, they heard the flute in a particular way, this will happen. So it is the 2 meanings. After this happened, in this way, they reacted like that. And in this way, this will happen in the future as well. And again, the word Rajan comes here, as we mentioned, the word Rajan, which is O king. So it's the commentators mentioned this is the same application than previous verses when the word Nripa appeared. Maybe you remember at least 2 verses. And Sukadev says to Parikshit, Nripa, O king. And the commentator said this is the same situation, the same intention. Sanatana Goswami says that Sukadev Goswami got up, taking Parikshit by the hands, and try to imagine the scene, and hugged him affectionately. So try to imagine, the lecturer is giving the kata and suddenly stands up and starts to embrace the audience ecstatically, and both of them are crying. So basically, this is the context here when Sukadev says, "Oh king." So it's not only a word, but something is going on in relation to that word. It's not just saying, "Oh Kishore, oh Shamananda." The "oh Shamananda" implies some action behind that expression of. So the action here is Sukadev is embracing the king. Why? Because remember, Sukadev is try to enter into the emotional tension of the situation. Parikshit Maharaj has been cursed to die in 1 week. And at this point, they say that 5 days have already passed. So only 2 days remain. And there's a deadline, literally. So Sukadev Goswami knows this, and he's deeply appreciating the absorption of his disciple, Parikshit Maharaj. He's hearing with such gravity and such absorption, and he's getting closer and closer to his perfection in Shravan. Remember, Parikshit Maharaj is our Shravanakya Guru. Among all the Navalaksham Bhakti, or the 9 main limbs, angas of Bhakti, Shravan, Kirtan, Vishnu Smana, and so on. First is Shravan, and for each one of them there is, like a perfect example that attain perfection through that particular limb. So the one in connection with Shravan is Parikshit Maharaj. So still there are 2 days for him to bear the fruit of that perfection. But Sukadev Goswami is just like saying, it's just a matter of time, just 2 days. My disciple is about to be fully successful. He will die in 2 days, but he will die to live. So Sukadev Goswami is really appreciating that. He's having like a trailer of all that will happen in just 2 days. So he cannot help but himself and just standing and starts to embrace Parikshit. Oh, king, I love you so much. Because that's how a guru feels when she's seeing a disciple taking the matter seriously. You know? So that's important to know. And also, if you may know, Raj, generally Raj, if you want to apply the term to a king from this world, Parikshit was one of them, world emperor. So king is someone who is conquering territory outside, on the outside, if you will, in this world, conquering land, places. You become Raj, you become king. And sometimes the acharyas say, but although here the word is Raj, it's just Raj for the sake of meter. But actually he is Maharaj Parikshit. And the acharyas will say, Maharaj, the Raj is the one who conquers territory outside. Maharaj is the one who conquers territory inside. No. And that's also Maharaj Parikshit. He's one of them as well. Sometimes Maharaj is synonymous with Goswami, similarly, the one who's conquering or becoming master of the inside, basically. Instead of trying to rule outside, most people want to change the world or to rule the world. Sometimes change the world is another way of saying trying to control the world. To change it so it works how I like. So it's still I want to control. So there's not much change. And some other people try to control the inner land, the inner landscape and territory. So Parikshit Maharaj is such a king because he is a king in the ordinary sense of the term. He was the emperor of the world even. So he was not just like a little fellow in charge of like a few 10 acres in India, but he was the emperor of the whole world, the glorious descendant of the Pandavas. I mean, we cannot like conceive the extent of his realm and reign and so on, but he left it all. As we always say, no? I mean, it's relatively easy to be renounce the world when you don't have anything. No? It's like you are a homeless person, say, I will accept sannyas. Oh, well, okay. I mean, we will give you a garland or something, but but you are not renouncing that much if you already do not have anything. So you follow. But if you have everything and you renounce that everything, oh, that's another thing. Because many people do not have anything, but they want everything. Still, they're full of desire. They're frustrated. They are wanting this, that, but they cannot. Okay, Parikshit Maharaj had everything, but when he knew only 7 days to live, immediately leaving aside kingdom, family, money, position in the world, and just absorbing himself in Harikatha till the last breath. And again, he has just few days. Sukadeva Goswami is saying he only has 2 days. He knows he will pass away in 2 days, and he's totally undisturbed. I mean, he's not aware that he's passing away he's aware, but he's not aware. I mean, he's so absorbed in Harikatha. Death falls behind that. I mean, it's something that was left behind a long time ago. So try to imagine that. Try to put yourself in the shoes of Parikshit Maharaj, basically. Of course, that's a great blessing to know when you are leaving this world, because none of us have a clue when that will happen. And we may still, as we spoke the other day, living like today is not the last day, tomorrow is not the last day, the day after tomorrow is not the last day. And I'm relatively young, at least 70, 80, but maybe you're going to Daojikun, and almost one day before receiving mantra, and almost. So Krishna is sending reminders like every day can be the last day, so be careful, be serious about that. So what if you know that? I mean, in one sense you may say, well, that's a blessing, but it's a blessing if you know how to deal with that information, because many people may go crazy. They tell you have only 7 days, 5 days. It's like, oh, what to do now? But Parikshit Maharaj knew like 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, but he was totally undisturbed. So Sukadeva Goswami again is appreciating how the Maharaj is absolutely engrossed in his hearing and totally empathic with what's going on in the gopis' hearts. Again, he's not thinking I will die in 2 days. He's just concerned about what's going on in the gopis' hearts. So you pick which channel you want to see. You pick in which part symphony of the radio, you want to align yourself. No? Only 2 days, and I have some. What's going on in the hearts of the Brajavasis? How can I enter there and serve them there, and so on? So, in this case, Parikshit is totally absorbing in identifying with what, even though we are not, I'm not trying to posit Parikshit Maharaj also got Manjari Bhav, I'm not saying that. But his hearing was such that even though he has his own affinity, whenever he was hearing different sections, he will connect emotionally with all of them. It's not like, that's not my bhava, go to the next section. No, he was really into that. So this is a section where the gopis are again totally captivated by the sound of the flute. So Pardiraj is absorbing that, and Sukadev is absorbed in seeing the absorption of his student. No? That's a very beautiful scene. No? That happens also. The guru will see his students so absorbed, and the guru will get more absorbed, and each of them will like reciprocate each other, nourish each other with their own absorption. And that's a very nice dakshina to offer to Srila Gurudev. No? That's what Krishna is asking in the Gita again, manmana, give me your mind. Give me your mind means give me your absorption. Absorb your mind in me, give me your absorption, give me your attention. That's for me. And so on. So in that connection, the verse continues describing the Venu-nad, or the sound, the Venu-ravam, the sound of the flute, as Sarva Bhuta Manoharam. So you may have heard this word Manoharam. That's the name of Krishna, actually, Manohar, who means the one who steals the mind. So Sarva Bhuta Manoharam. So Krishna is known as a thief. There is no need to further enter into details. I mean, Krishna is a thief in every sense of the term. I mean, he's known for stealing butter. He's known for stealing the clothes of the gopis. He's known for stealing whatnot. I mean, stealing the hearts of the Vrajavasis. He's at Mahaprabhu stealing the luster of Sri Radha. Stealing. No? So here the gopis are describing the sound of the flute as Sarva Bhuta Manoharam. Like an extension, I mean, birds of the same feather flock together. No? So Krishna is a thief. The flute associates with Krishna so intimately, becomes a thief as well. Because Manoharam is Krishna. Krishna is Manoharam, the flute inherits those attributes and becomes also Manoharam. Sarva Bhuta Manoharam, which means of all living entities, of all living beings. There's a very nice composition called Sri Chaugragyastakam. Chaugragyastakam. Okay, I read it. Sometimes they like make it shorter because it's quite long. But we are speaking about the same composition. Maybe some of these days we can sing. It's very nice. It's similar to the Madhurastakam in the sense that it's like repeating. No? Sweet, 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 sweet. This one is thief, 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 thief. No, steal, you steal this, you steal this, you steal this. The song is all that only. You steal this, you steal that, you steal this, you steal this, you steal. That's it, the whole song basically. No? So that's a very nice one. But again, as Guru Maharaj always likes to share this nice story that Srila Siddhar Maharaj once told him, we celebrate his theft. Now that's a glorious, even though it may sound weird, in this world of where morality is appreciated at least by some, we are worshiping a God that is a thief. So in this brief story where two policemen were in India, and one of them say, well, it may be complicated that our God is a thief. I mean, we are policemen. We are trying to avoid theft, but we are worshiping the topmost thief. And only we are speaking about theft here. We are not speaking about Krishna being liar, womanizer, and other designations. Now let's stop at thief only. And the other person, of course, say, no, it's not a problem. Actually, it's the solution to all problems. Why? And as Guru Maharaj likes to say, because a thief does not care for high walls or nor locked doors. And those are precisely the things that we have built around our hearts. Trying to make sure that nobody's entering and plundering there. But again, Krishna is a thief. That's our hope. He's a thief, so he doesn't care for all these obstacles that we ourselves have put in between him and us. So he will jump those walls, enter will know the passwords, will hack them. He has contacts. So our hope is that Krishna is a thief. So it's not a problem, but it's the greatest of our hopes. So again, here we are celebrating. The gopis, again, it may seem that they are criticizing, oh, this flute is stealing the minds, but actually they are saying, ki jai, I mean, great. But here the verse is saying, the gopis are saying, the sound of the flute is sarva bhuta manoharam. So it's not only something that steals our minds, but they are witnessing this is stealing the minds of everyone here. Every living entity, not only human Brajavasis, but birds, plants, trees, inanimate objects. We will see that along the Venu-gita, how the flute affects every single species in Braj. So all the human Brajavasis, boys, young, old, everyone. Sarvabhuta means everyone, basically. And feeling their hearts according to the level of their particular bhav. In Srila Rupa Goswami, similarly, his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he describes the flute as Trijaga Manasa Krishi, which means something that attracts the minds of Trijaga, of the three planetary systems, all creation. The mind of all creation is magnetized, like drawn to that direction. Everyone. Sometimes poetically to say, like Ananta Shesh is depicted as being below the whole creation, sustaining the whole creation on his head, and doing pretty fine with that. Not having that much of a problem, equilibrium or something like that. But when the flute sound comes, Ananta says becomes a little dizzy or something. Like, oh, okay. With this sound of the flute, this Bamshi Dhwani, another name for Venunad. Or Shiva also, like when he's dancing, Shiva is depicted, as we already mentioned, as Nataraj, but the sound of the flute makes him forget like his dancing steps. At one point, like, what to do now? He becomes, again, some form of dizziness in that connection. Or Brahma, who is generally depicted as reciting the Vedas, 4 Vedas, with his 4 heads, and he starts to mess up the mantras and forget the mantras and put the accent in the wrong place when the flute is entering, and so on. Or Lakshmi, who is perpetually massaging the feet of Narayana, and at one point the sound of the flute comes and no more massage session there, no more feet. It's like, okay, maybe I should join Rasa Lila. No? Or Jamuna Devi, who is flowing, is a river, is liquid, sometimes contradicts her nature in different forms. She becomes like ice, stop moving, or start flowing backwards. You generally do not see that, no? Like a river going like this and going like no. But all, as we will see along the verses, how the different natures of the inhabitants of Braj become inverted by the sound of the flute. So the gopis know the effect of the flute, and they try to take some care so they are not that plundered by the sound of the flute. It is said that the gopis put earrings on their ears, and those earrings are constantly moving, so making some sound. So the idea here is, so those will be like jai vijay, if you will, some form of gatekeepers who will keep sounding, so that sound will keep not the other sound for entering. So they will, the gate, like if you have a valuable treasure somewhere and you pay to 2 people, you stay out the door and take care of that. And the people will do their job during the day, but at night they will say, well, everyone is sleeping now, so I think, and they will also enter into samadhi, basically. So similarly, the gopis at the end of the day, they have all day long the earrings there protecting the ears. I mean, it's a way of saying, of course, it's not that during the day they are not hearing the flute, but in the night they put out the earrings and they go to sleep, and they say, okay, the guardians now are over, and the flute enters into the night. Not yet so much, but we'll see in Rasa Lila, it's like that's the standard. Now during the night, it's like flute is coming and the guardians are not there, and the flute is calling them over and over again. And that's why, for example, in Rasa Lila, when Krishna played the flute, as you may know, the gopis go to meet him finally for the first time, and Krishna like saw, he's playing a flute in this beautiful autumn night, full moon in the forest, and all these beautiful damsels come, and he's so inspired. But he sees all the gopis and say, like, so what you are doing here? What brings you, all you ladies, simultaneously to this same spot at this time of the year, at this time of the night. It's night. I mean, society won't look nicely upon us if they know that we're. So better you go back home. You know, Krishna starts to churn their hearts by this. But he asked them that, what are you doing here? And basically the gopis are telling to him, we came to bring to have our property back. Basically, Sarva Bhuta Manoharam. You play your flute, you stole our property, our heart, the treasure of our hearts, our prem. You took that, you enter into the chamber there, the flute sound entered and took everything. So now we are coming to have our property back. And there the whole conversation unfolds. There's also one nice explanation that is given by Srinath Chakrabarti, which is the guru of Kavi Karnapur, also a well-known commentator of the Bhagavatam. He interprets Sarva Bhuta Manoharam slightly in a different way. He says that not so much that the song of the flute was captivating to all minds, of course also as well, but that the gopis described the song of the flute in such a way that their description was stealing the minds of every living being. So the Sanskrit lends itself to that flexibility of interpretation. And so in this case, the emphasis is put on the song of the gopis, not so much of the song of the flute from Krishna, but the song of the gopis about the flute of Krishna, how that's captivating to everyone else, which is true as well. All these interpretations are equally possible. So, so the gopis describe here this song of the flute that captivates every living being, and again, abhire bhire. While describing that song, as we will see in the Venu-gita, abhire bhire, they embrace each other. So there are many meanings to this idea of why they embrace each other. So we will try to elaborate on that. That will be mostly our last point here. And for this, of course, we have to remember again the parakya life of the gopis, basically, which is starting to blossom in this section of the Bhagavatam. This Venu-gita is the first official main chapter in the Bhagavatam, which starts to unfold the Madhurya Rasa section of the 10th canto. So remember, parakya bhav means abhahita bhav, sometimes it's called. Abhahita means like to hide. So they had to hide their mood for Krishna. They cannot make it public, as we know. There's lots of secrecy. There's a lot of confidentiality, clandestine dynamics in their love. That's how Lila Shakti is creating this parakya. So they cannot like make it public. Again, they cannot run and embrace Krishna in the midst of the forest, in the midst of the whole village of Braj. They cannot do what everyone else is doing. Try to imagine this. That's the situation of the gopis. That's why Rupa Goswami makes them in a separate category. Sambandha Rupa Bhakti, Kama Rupa Bhakti. So Sambandha Rupa means Krishna has a relationship with servants, with friends, with parents, and they reciprocate with each other in a natural way in front of everyone, and it's perfect. Mother should love the child should love the mother, friend should love the friend, servant should serve the master, and the master should reciprocate, and everyone is seeing that, and it's okay. But the gopis should not, quote unquote, according to the so-called morality of this, should not be loving Krishna because they are married with someone else, and so on and so. But they do. So that cannot happen openly in the dynamics of the Lila. So the gopis are day after day seeing everyone is embracing Krishna, speaking with Krishna, expressing their love for Krishna, and Krishna is reciprocating with them in front of everyone else, except for us. Everyone else can do that. We cannot do that. So you try to imagine how all this starts to boil in the gopis' heart. Sometimes the parakya love of the gopis is compared to a, how do you call it in English? Like a pressure cooker. No? That it doesn't seems nothing is happening. It's just closed there. But so much steam you say, is building there. No? Building, but nothing comes out. It's like nothing. but something, how is it in English, like whistles? Explode here and there, no? Coming from the pressure cooker. So it cannot contain that much. It's too much. It has to come out in some form. So one of those whistles is the Venu-gita. We will find 6 main whistles of that sort of the Parakya type in the Bhagavatam, which are these 6 songs of the gopis: Venu-gita, Pranaya-gita, Gopi-gita, Jugal-gita, Viraha-gita, and Brahmar-gita. So each one of them are like these 6 whistles of the pressure cooker of the Parakya Bhava of the gopis. So again, everyone can express their love in Braj publicly for Krishna, except the gopis, who love Krishna like nobody else, totally, extremely, passionately, but they cannot make that. They have to hide it. Try to imagine, no? You have the most extreme love, but it's at the same time the most forbidden one. So it's something so intense. It's not that the point is, try to understand that. I mean, generally it may be difficult to understand because we don't have prem. So we don't have a clue what does it mean to live with that that volcanic eruption wanting to come out at every single moment. Because if you really love Krishna, not someone, but Krishna, I mean, how can you contain that? I mean, it's like overwhelming. It's overflowing you at every moment. And what to speak if you are speaking about the most extreme of that love, which at the same time has to be totally secret and forbidden. You have to manage that. I mean, at every moment that wants to explode and make eruption, and somehow you have to work with that in such a way that nobody in the village suspects that you have that stuff. I mean, some suspicion is there, but but it never comes more beyond that. So it is said that in the midst of that predicament of the gopis feeling that thing, not being able to express that outside, they start to embrace each other, like empathizing with each other, knowing the predicament in which my friend is. She loves Krishna so much she cannot express that. We have not been able yet to meet with him officially, so they start to embrace each other, like give support to each other in their love for Krishna. It's not like they are jealous. I love Krishna, you cannot love him, only one. I am her beloved. I mean, in this world, that's another quote, no? Romantic love generally is not shared by more than one person, one-on-one, but it's not like, oh, I have like 16,000 lovers and my wife will understand, no problem. But we see that here they are nourishing each other. Like when Sri Radha was taken by Krishna in the Rasa Leelas, and all the gopis are looking for Krishna, they met finally Sri Radha, who has been left by Krishna for certain reasons. And it's not that they feel happy, oh, he left her now, she was our rival. No, they totally empathize with her and take shelter in her and try to accompany each other, and they start to do Sankirtan together in separation from Krishna. So in this way, the gopis at this point, again, they have not met, they are in Purvarag, they have not met with Krishna. They are feeling so intense, so much intense love and separation from him. And eventually we will see why Krishna rewards them every single night with Rasa Leela. Because during the day, they suffer so much not being able to meet with him practically. Of course, in the midday at one point that will happen for a while. But during the rest of the day, the gopis have to create the whole scenery. But at night, Krishna is fully theirs, if you will, in that sense. Like he's giving his whole night, like, okay, during the day we cannot meet, we have the whole night for us, basically. And Rasa Leela is there to reward the gopis. But again, for now, there's no Rasa Leela yet. So Krishna is basically telling them, you cannot meet me at night, but my flute song will be your companion by now. So Krishna is trying to support them and keep them alive. Basically, the Acharya sometimes describe in those terms. Try to keep them alive in separation. It's difficult to keep alive, to keep oneself alive. That means when you really love someone and you cannot be with the object of your love and serve that object of your love, I mean, life has no meaning, basically. Another Acharyas described that the gopis embrace each other because in their ecstasy of their love, they start to feel that some of the gopis were Krishna himself. So they were feeling like they were embracing Krishna. That's described in some parts of the Bhagavatam also. Tanmanaska tadalapas tadbiches tadadmika tadgunami bagayantu madgayanti, and so on. That the gopis sometimes with their minds, they remember Krishna, with their bodies, they imitated their leelas and so on. They start to speak about him. They got tadatmya, totally engrossed in him. Some of the gopis even say, I'm Krishna. Not Mayabad, but in their ecstasy of empathy and identification, some of them say, I'm Krishna. And the other one started like to play Putana, and the other gopi was Krishna killing Putana, and so on. Imitate all different leelas of Krishna. Or also the nature of the embrace is that some of the gopis could understand, oh, you are feeling the exact same thing that I'm feeling. So we are feeling the same thing. You have, or some of them express what they are feeling, and the other gopi will say, you have just expressed what was in my heart. You kind of read my innermost chamber of my heart, and you just described perfectly in words. How could you know my inner secrets so well? So one gopi is embracing the other and crying in separation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says something similar. He says in the commentary, on account of perceiving that each girl had the same type of realization, the girls hugged one another. To the same point, they perceive we are in the same channel, basically. We are feeling the same thing. And again, it's not that I'm jealous of you. Oh, you love Krishna, I love Krishna. But they start hugging each other. Or they're revealing their mind. They're sharing their hearts and mind in proper sadhu sangha, in proper association. Krishna says, Machita matgata prana bodhayanta parashwaram katayantastamam nityam tusanti charamanti. So this applies here. That's a very nice definition of sadhu sangha he's given. He says, my devotees have always, ultimately this applies to this situation. My devotees have their minds and hearts absorbed in me. They enlighten one another by speaking about me. They nourish each other, and they increase the taste of their experience while sharing about me, absorbed in me. So that's totally applicable here. So the gopis are sharing confidentiality because the things are not to be shared in a cheap way. Narottam Das Thakur will say, apana bhajana kata na kahivo jata tata, which means do not reveal the secrets of your bhajan here and there. Like do not make a cheap show and open an Instagram account and share your, oh, today I felt this and I saw that. And so now this is to be shared in sajatiya sadhu sangha, snigdasya sajatiya, and so on. Swatavara, Rupa Goswami describes sadhu sangha should be, he mentions three things: sajatiya, swatavara, and snigdasya. This is for Krishnangi who likes to write all these categories. So she's writing all of them. So if you lose some of them, you go to her and you ask the list after that. 108 points that I'm torturing you with in my class. So three qualities of sadhu sangha, he says. Swajatiya, which means you have to, there are different types of sadhu sangha. Of course, you can relate with all devotees. You should, hopefully, in different ways. But here, strictly speaking, the word sangha means a type of relationship that is really so close and intimate that starts to transform you. There's mutual transformation in association. If there's not much intimacy, there's not much transformation. It's more general, and it's okay. You can have full intimate relationship with every single Vaishnava you cross, and there's no time for. You need time for going deep into any relationship. But it's good to have those relationships with some Vaishnava. So Swajatiya is the first one, which means he or she has to be from the same jati, which means the same family. And family means like the same nature, same DNA, if you will. Now you have to really feel, we speak the same language here. Swajatiya, we are in the same channel. Then snigdasya. Snigdasya means affectionate. The person has to be affectionate. It has to be affectionate dealings based on trust and confidence, and some same nature and ideal and mood. And of course, same mood can have so many levels of application. You can even apply that to same affinity for some bhava eventually when you are more advanced, but it can be also on some other levels as well. And Swatabhara means with people who is more advanced than you, which is also important to look the association with more advanced devotees. Sometimes too much more advanced may be overwhelming. You have to know also how to deal with advancement, if you will. And it's nice to be connected with extremely advanced Vaishnavas, but sometimes on a daily basis, you have to have a capacity with dealing with someone extremely advanced every single day of your life. Sometimes in those cases, you can be closer to the devotees who are still more advanced, but maybe not that more advanced. So it's not that overwhelming. So the gopis here are going through that experience. They are relating to each other in a very affectionate way. They are of a similar nature. They have a similar, again, realization, attraction. So, and they feel, oh, you are expressing what's in my heart. Like Guru Maharaj sometimes shares, that's the experience of being in front of your guru. No, he or she's telling all the things that are in your heart, and you never found the words to express them. He always quotes one song that's Killing Me Softly or something. No? In that song, that's described that I never knew that song, but I got to know by Guru Maharaj. That the person, you are hearing someone singing in one stage, and the person is singing all your life in song, and you are like, I mean, how does he know all? Of course, in another context, you know. So we are going to that particular. So there you find those things, you know, when you are properly attuned, or sometimes the disciple is so attuned with his guru, it is described that he or she will know what the guru will say right after what he's saying. You know, like it's a natural like connection, flow that, oh yeah, it's going here, it's going, you know, something like this. I remember recently a god brother of Guru Maharaj passed away, and he shared some words in social media, and he will mention that he said that at some point we didn't even have to share words. They were quite committed with distributing Prabhupada's books and those times, and they were really into that. He mentioned that we just needed to look at each other in the eyes, and our commitment for serving Srila Prabhupada was totally clear in us, and we didn't need to say anything. We were just so much attuned with that mood of service and pleasing our Gurudev, and we just need to see each other and share what was going in our hearts in that attempt of service, and something like that. No, so we should experience. No, that's how we should experience Harikatha, Sadhu Sangha with certain people, at least in certain moments. I mean, it sounds magical, but it is magical. It's not something that sounds. But we should get to that point, you know, of dedication and connection with other dedicated souls. That, again, sometimes words get in the way, as they say. No? And again, Srinath Chakrabarti, he gives in his purport, in his commentary to this verse, interestingly, he first gives a detailed description of many gopis and different types of groups of gopis present here, not only Radha and her group, but there were many groups. And then he says, those ladies who had the same disposition began a description which involved a mutual embrace with those who had a similar disposition. All of this will become clear in Rasa Lila, where also different groups are described. So those are some options to understand this abhire bire. They embrace each other. Sridhar Swami, the famous ancient commentator, explains abhire bire saying, the gopis embraced Krishna through each of the words they pronounce in their song. Like more poetically mentioned, each one of the songs they will sing are their embrace to Krishna. No, not necessarily they are embracing each other physically, but their song is their embrace. If I love someone, I sang a love song to that person, and it's really surcharged with love, the person will feel, wow, no, embraced by the song. Not necessarily you need a physical embrace. Baladev Vidyabhushan mentioned that the gopis in this moment embrace Krishna within their hearts. That's another way of understanding. Not necessarily applies embrace each other. It can be applied they embraced. The word embraced. So they embraced Krishna in their hearts while singing. And Sanatan Goswami mentioned that the gopis embraced the sound of the flute. So different direction with embrace. No? each other, Krishna in their heart through each of the words of the song, or they heard the sound of the flute and internally they embrace the sound of the flute. They adhered the sound of the flute to their hearts. No? So that's the extreme emotional condition in which the gopis are. I mean, I know it's difficult to imagine, but we have to at least try to imagine, get closer a little bit, at least to from which emotional stage they are will sing this Gopi Gita. So remember, for a moment, due to ecstasy, they were at the loss of words. They didn't know what to say, or they were not able to speak. But after some time, now we are about to begin Venu-gita, so the gopis will regain their truth, will be back, if you will, and some of their emotions from the whistle of the pressure cooker will calm down for a moment, and somehow they will regain their composure and will be able to, at least for some verses, to say something. Eventually they will be caught again, choked up. So in the next verse that will happen. Next verse will begin officially with the Venu-gita, with the first verse, which is a very, very nice verse, very well-known one. This Venu-gita has many famous verses. And the next one is very nice, which includes Dauji Gopal, interestingly. So you have to prepare for that one tomorrow. But before finishing, can you give me some extra minutes? Are you still alive? Yes? Say yes, just to confirm.
Yes.
Okay. I have to put some cotton to see if there is some air coming. So since we mentioned the idea of the Venu-gita and the flute, and so many things we can say about the flute, but I wanted to finish sharing with you some very nice, and also recently I've been studied the Braja Vilas Stava by Raghunath Das Goswami, which is a very nice book about offering pranam to all different inhabitants of Vrindavan. Before going to Vrindavan, actually, I started reading that. I asked Guru Maharaj, like, I'm going to Vrindavan, so I thought maybe studying this book will be a good way to enter Vrindavan before entering Vrindavan, because the whole book are like hundreds of verses offering pranam to each one. Jashoda, Nanda, Dula, Subal, Madhumangal, Krishna, Radha, the trees, the birds, the river, Purnamasi, everyone. And you get to know, of course, each one of them more. So he gave the blessings for that. He said, yeah, that's a very important book, just in case, for you to know. And in there, we find two verses, which are like a pranam mantra to the flute. So I want to share those verses just briefly with you. Verses 48 and 49, for those who would like to see them more in detail. So I'll go straight to the English translation in this case, and I'll ask you some minutes for sharing some ideas in that connection. So there are two verses, but the two are interconnected. So Sri Das Goswami says, Aho, I always offer my obeisances unto the most fortunate Murali flute, who is nourished by drinking the nectar of Krishna's lips, day and night, without obstruction, and who takes away Sri Radha's great loving pique, like man. It's right, like pique. Yeah, well, sulkiness, sulky mood. Who takes away Sri Radha's great loving pique, sulky mood, with its sweet sounds. Brinda and other girl messengers used many flattering words. Madhumangal and other boyfriends used many joking words. Sri Krishna himself fell at her feet, and her girlfriends used intimidating threats. Nothing could pacify Sri Radha's turbulent loving pique, sulkiness, but the sound of Krishna's flute. I always praise this most fortunate Saki, the Vamsi flute. So these are the two verses, which one glorifies the Murli flute, the other one glorifies the Vamsi flute. There are three main flutes, as we mentioned, Murli, Vamsi, Venu. So the Vamsi and the Murli are feminine, female in nature, and the Venu is male in nature, interestingly. So that's why here it's calling the flute the Saki, but although the Venu, that is the main name of the flute here in this chapter, is male in nature, And these mantras glorify the Murli and the Vamsi flutes, which are female in nature. We are including these two other flutes into the equation of our Venu-gita, because there are many other praises. I mean, all the praises that are in these verses for the Vamsi and the Murli also apply to the Venu. It's not that do not apply. For example, in Ujjval Nilamani, Rupa Goswami is saying that the Venu is supreme because the sulkiness of Sri Radha is destroyed simply when Hari blowing through it. So it's the same thing saying about the Venu. So you can just replace here Venu, Vamsi, Murli. So again, the flute is very powerful. In Ujjval Nilamani, Rupa Goswami mentioned that the flute sound is the greatest of all Udipanas. He gets to say that even. The flute sound of Krishna is the greatest of all Udipanas. And specifically, these two verses glorify the flute in the context of destroying Radha's sulky mood, or man, which sometimes is not easy to destroy. Basically, to say that Lalita Devi is Sri Radha's guru in man. Lalita Devi is the one who tells many times Sri Radha, oh, you have to get angry with that rascal. Be more strong in your sulky mood. Do not break it. No, that Krishna did that, and you dedicate so much to him, and how he replies to that, he doesn't come to the Kunj, he goes to Chandravali, such a womanizer, such a rascal, be angry with him. So Sri Radha enters into that mode following Lalita's instruction. So it's intense, Lalita is intense. Ugra Nisringadev is nothing in comparison, just to give you an idea. Because who is Nisringadevi ultimately? Shyam Sundar. And Shyam Sundar is falling at the feet of Sri Radha, who is instructed by Lalita in that mood. So what must it be Lalita Devi? It's intense mood. But here it is described that even though that loving peak or sulkiness is so difficult to break, the flute is able to do it. That's a particular way of glorifying the flute. So it is said that by narrating this glorious Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, the author of this verse, is envisioning one particular lila that this gives one example of how this happens. So I would like to finish sharing one account given by Ananda Gopal Goswami, who was a Rasika Vaishnava from the Advaita Parivar, very well known by his commentaries on Vilap Kusumanjali and other literatures. So he very nicely describes the background to these verses. So I will read this, and with this we are finishing today. It says like this. It's like a summary. One day, Sri Radha was eagerly waiting for her lover in a kunja when he came to her with the signs of enjoyment of another heroine on him, and this caused her pique. Do you follow this, the situation? Sri Radha has been all night long preparing the forest bower for Krishna to come. He never came at the appropriate time. And when he comes totally late, almost the sun is coming, he comes with all the signs of the sacrifice of Cupid on his body, of the loving battle just coming from a kunj with Chandravali or someone like him. So Sri Radha is seeing that, man. So she becomes angry with Krishna. Everybody, Krishna as well as the Sakhis, were aggrieved because of Manini's long-lasting pique. So that's the name of Sri Radha when she enters in Man. She becomes Manini. Manini is she who is in Man. There are many names from Sri Radha like this: Virahini, Manini, Pagalini. Like when he's like a mad woman, Pagalini. When she's in Viraha and separation, Virahini. When she's in Man, Manini, and so on. So everyone was suffering because of her suffering, because she's suffering in that mood. It's part of the Leela, of course. It's enhancing rasa at the same time. The different clever and flattering words of Brinda and her girl messengers could not remove her pique. Remember, pique means this sulkiness. The different funny and suggestive words of Madhu Mangal and his bodies were unable to remove Srimati's pique. So all the different attempts were made there. First the Brinda and her messengers, then Madhu Mangal, who will make laugh anyone. But in this case, it didn't work. Priyanar Masakas, we are in an intimate setting. And finally, after Gopi's try didn't work, Gopa's try didn't work, finally, The guilty Krishna himself fell at Manini's foot soles, floating in his own tears. But still, Srimati's peak was not broken. So try to imagine Krishna rolling on the ground of Sri Radha, totally wet with his own tears, like a little kunda of his own tears, begging forgiveness. She's still unbroken man. Sitting with her back towards him, she completely rejected him. Just imagine you have someone pulling out your feet crying and you just like. Seeing that both Radha and Shyam were suffering hardships, the Sakis also undertook different efforts to break Radha's peak by speaking to her. First were Brinda and her girl messengers. Now the intimate personal friends of Sri Radha are coming, trying to implore, please save his life. Basically, that was the argument at this point. Krishna is about to die if you don't break your man. He's dying. Look at him. Save his life. But to no avail. Manini silently sat there, weeping and breathing heavily. Everyone is upset with anxiety and anguish. Just then, when everything was about to become a tragedy, literally, one Saki told Shyam, told Krishna, hey, have you forgotten the glories of your flute? Take shelter of your flute just once and let's see what will happen. Thus, Shyam Sundar then took his flute to his flower-like lips and blew in it. Shyam's heartache of separation from Sri Radha became manifest, was expressed in the unclear, sweet sounds of the flute. And as soon as that sound entered into Srimati's ear holes, she became unsteady. No, she was very fixed in man, but now everything started to shake. So she became unsteady, and gone was her peak. The Sakis then glorified the fortunate flute who was able to remove Srimati's peak and establish the meeting of the divine pair for that day. So happy ending. Thanks, due to the flute always. No? So that's the meaning, the background lila to this particular verse. So in this way, some words regarding the flute, and in the same way that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is praising the flute, we also follow in his footsteps, trying to glorify Sri Venu and his Vamsi and preparing ourselves to begin officially Venu-gita tomorrow. So today we will put our narration to rest, hopefully following the words and spirit of Srila Das Goswami, Srila Sukadev Goswami. And tomorrow we will continue with verse number 7. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Sri Dauji Gopal ji ki jai, Sri Shrantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Venu-gita ki jai, Tiro Bab Mahotsav Titi Sri Udarandat Thakur ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Priman Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.